The story starts with our protagonist, Haruka, in a state of panic. He hides behind a tree, trying to catch his breath, escaping from a bunch of little green monsters. He sneakily tries to leave, but accidentally steps on a branch, alerting all the monsters. He runs for it, with all the monsters chasing him, but their dreams of catching him shatter as he flies off into the sky in front of the monsters' eyes. What is he doing there? And what is really happening? It turns out, he is journeying through another world alone. How did he get there? Well, let's start from day one, on the day he was transported to this world. It was a normal day at school. He was reading a book during the break, and it's pretty obvious that he is a loner. Moreover, the answer to why he's a loner is pretty obvious too. He didn't want anything to do with his classmates, especially these delinquents. All they do is disturb his reading. These classmates aren't normal people. They're national athletes, overachievers, and children of famous people. He sits there and wonders what a normal student like him is doing in a classroom full of troublesome students. Suddenly, he noticed something shining underneath his feet. A magic circle. The magic circle engulfed the classroom. He was excited to see it for a while, like it was something straight out of the book he just read. But on another thought, alternate worlds are so troublesome, he's fine with reading about them in his books, but not actually living in one. Nah, he doesn't need unnecessary stuff. He kept trying to escape from the classroom. He figured escaping through the windows wouldn't work, so he went for the attic. In the blink of an eye, everything shifts, and he finds himself sitting in a pitch-white room. He wonders why there's no one here. At this time, from the novel he read before, a fat king and a beautiful princess that a nerd like him can only dream about should show up and greet him. Suddenly, he sees an old man there just wandering around. Maybe he lost his way home and entered an alternate world. Or maybe this isn't an alternate reality at all. It's just an old man's home. The old man asks Haruka what he's doing in such a place. Haruka's head filled with thoughts. He wondered all the things included something stupid, like if the old man had even had some lunch before. "I didn't," said the old man. "What the hell is happening?" Haruka looks at him, bewildered. Is the old man just reading his thoughts? He figures it out. The old man must be a god that summoned him to this white room. Haruka pulls the old man's leg by calling himself proclaimed and senile. The old man gets mad and starts yelling, saying he's not senile. But that's what every senile person says. The old man asks Haruka why he wasn't in the summoned room, when everyone else has already traveled to the other world. But Haruka had no clue either. The old man says he didn't summon him individually, but as a group, he thought that would be enough to summon all of them, but only Haruka ended up in a different place. The old man figures it out. It was because Haruka escaped the confined room by going into the attic. Haruka giggles. The old man overlooked it even though he's a god. But how would the old man know? The god in front of him doesn't look so omnipotent after all. But it's fine because he has already been here in a different world. The god explained that the others had already made their preparations and left. So if Haruka left now, he might still be able to group up with them. The old man drops the bombshell. Choose your skills. Haruka's eyes widen, thinking he'll be able to become a hero in the end, getting an OP skill that makes even the Demon Lord tremble. But all his dreams get crushed when the old man adds that the skills are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis, which means all the good ones might already be taken and he's left with the leftovers. Haruka gets mad and grabs the old man. He screams out loud, calling him an old man. The god gets bamboozled at Haruka calling him an old man, even though he told him he's a god. Haruka angrily jolts the old man, telling him not to give him the early bird catches the worm nonsense. How can he only choose some trash skill while others have some crazy one? But the old man tries to reassure him, saying there might still be some good ones left. In the end, Haruka looks at the leftover skills and finds out there's nothing good left at all. Yet the god scarily tells him to read the description because he might end up liking one of the skills. Haruka has 50 points to spend. He can allocate 1 point to each stat or roll the dice twice for 10 points. He knows that his luck is standard, so he won't be rolling the dice though, because the stats only goes up to 12 point at best if he rolls and gets 6 points twice. He moves on to the equipment section, but there isn't any individual equipment left except for the villager set, which has 100 in stock. There are also some contact lenses available for 30 points, but they're too expensive. In the martial arts section, there are sword arts and spear arts, but they're all sold out. Only cane arts are left. He wonders what cane art even is, hitting things with a stick? That surely isn't enough to survive in an alternate world. Now for skills, there's everyone's favorite experience up, and the standard sorcery, pickpocketing, and clairvoyance, which are all awesome for a different world, but they aren't available anymore. All that's left are skills like health, walking, and exercise, which have nothing to do with alternate worlds. Now, when it comes to magic, there are 4 elements: lightning and healing. But as expected, none of them are available. Haruka sighs in disappointment. He wonders why he can't get some exciting developments like choosing his own fitting skills after being summoned. In special traits, all the options were bad stats. There were some stupid ones like Ho-Renso, which allows users to be a salaryman in the alternate world. Well, nothing good is left, so the old man looks away in shame. Haruka looks at the next title portion. It's got so many epic titles like Swordmaster, Guardian, and Wizard. These edgy titles have been all over his high school too, but all that's left for him are Shut-In and Neat, which is like a free ticket to being killed by a monster. The skill listing ends, and so do Haruka's hopes of succeeding. He knows he won't even be able to clear the tutorial village with the leftover skills if he plays some RPG game. The old man is still looking away, so Haruka asks him if there's something he would like to tell him, but the old man makes a run for it. Haruka quickly catches up to him. The old man stops and looks down. He tells Haruka that so far the most people he has summoned were 30. They all got to choose the skills they wanted, but this time, 43 people came by, and he didn't even notice that Haruka was left out. The old man gets up and presents Haruka with an offer. He will give Haruka all the skills. Haruka stands there, confused. He knows that if he takes all these skills, he will practically be in hell mode. How can he use all the bad skills and turn them into something useful? But the old man ponders how that's a bad thing and tells him to be grateful and smile. Haruka was still angry. The old man was really turning senile. Suddenly, the old man walks away. "Farewell," he says. Before being able to react, Haruka's surroundings change, and he's in a completely new place now, a forest full of trees. That's when he realizes that the old man transported him to an alternate world just like that. Haruka stands there in confusion. The old man really transported him out of nowhere. He wonders what the hell was going on in the old man's mind. He could have at least given him time to prepare and grab some equipment. Maybe let him take a bath or brush his teeth at least. He looks down and finds a bag on the floor. He opens it and finds all his new equipment. Oh, good thing the god doesn't forget his equipment. He puts all the shiny new equipment on, and now he actually starts feeling legit in another world with all that equipment on. All the title he got, including villager, doesn't sound so bad either if he really thinks about it. Self-assured, he wonders if his stats are as good as his heroic looks with all the equipment on. 2 suspicious dice show up on his hand, and Haruka wonders if the old man really dumped all the leftover skills on him and left. What a fraud. He rolls the dice and the M faces show up. He wonders what the M means. Maybe it means a minus or something similar to a masochist. Could it be it's the old man playing a prank on him? The system then asks him how he would like to allocate his stats. Haruka decides to focus on luck, because that seems like the only way out of his current situation. There's no hope otherwise. The system asks how many points he would like to allocate to that stat. He decides to go all in for his luck stat, because having balanced attributes seems to be useless in this situation. Yet he still has a bad feeling about this. Not wanting to think too much, he makes his decision and the system confirms it. He checks his stats, His luck skill is maxed out? So he understands that those M's on the dice meant maximum capacity, though the rest of the skills are pretty much useless. And to add fuel to the fire, the god also gave him a skill that looks like it was made for him, Loner, with a bonus ability of manipulation. And with the Loner title, he cannot form or join any parties, he must survive alone. In comparison, manipulation allows him to manipulate minions and underlings. Haruka goes ballistic. He must survive in this alternate world alone. That sounds like a living hell. He wanted to travel with his teammates, but he has always been a loner to be honest, so it won't be hard for him. Starting from now, he decides to keep going. Speaking of teammates, his entire class was transported, but he still hasn't seen anyone so far, but even if he sees them, he can't form a party with them anyway. So, focusing on his own situation right now seems like the best plan. First, he needs to find shelter. It would be awesome if he finds some food as well. Haruka starts to make his way through the forest. It really hinders his sight. He wonders if he'll be able to survive a surprise attack from a monster if it comes up out of nowhere, with only his ability to doze off. But then he suddenly remembers he also got those expensive contact lenses from that old man. He puts them on and his vision immediately clears up. He's able to see everything clearly. Not just his vision, he can even see all the information about the stuff around him. He opens up his stats to check if something has changed, and it turns out he got a new skill inspection just by using the lenses. Haruka couldn't believe his eyes. He hit the jackpot. That's exactly what he needed for journeying through this world alone. Now that he's got night vision, it's time to get out of this forest. The inspection skill also improves his perception, which makes it easier to search for something and much more fun. While walking, he comes across a plonk mushroom, and thanks to the inspection skill, he sees its information and knows it's edible. He can put as many materials as he wants in his bag, which means he can store food and medicine as well, which is very convenient. Haruka, feeling confident, the villager title is a really one hell of a class. Also, using contact lenses, he can find whatever he wants. At one point, he sees a bright light, so he runs towards the source and finds a river. He drinks some of the water, which makes him feel refreshed. Then, looks towards the distance and thinks there might be something there, so he decides to check it out. He walks to the place and ends up at a creepy-looking cave entrance. With rumbling sounds echoing from inside the cave, Haruka hesitantly enters. He calls out, asking if there's anyone inside, wonders if there are any monsters, or maybe he's trespassing someone's shelter. However, the cave turns out to be empty. Although he saw it from the outside, it's really wide and comfortable from the inside. He has a magic tent and lantern in his bag. The magic tent opens and closes automatically when magic power is poured in. Not only that, but it also controls temperature and repels monsters and bugs. And the lantern is just as magical. It brightens and dims light while also repelling monsters and bugs. It seems like he will be able to survive surprisingly well here. He pulls out the firewood that he gathered earlier, uses the temperature magic to raise the temperature, and starts a bonfire. Now the beasts will stay out of the cave. Haruka yawns. A lot has happened today, and he's completely worn out. But he decides to check his stats before sleeping. He notices that the temperature's level has gone up and he got fire magic. He also got 1,000-mile eyes, probably because he was looking far out while wandering about. It seems like he got out of the forest because of it. And he must have gotten the present sense into enemy location while looking out for monsters. He wonders what he's going to do if a monster actually shows up. All he can do is beat it with a stick. Fast forward, and Haruka's eyes open in the morning. He quickly checks the surroundings and sighs in relief that nothing happened overnight. It's all thanks to the monster repellent skill that protects his shelter. Unexpectedly, his stomach starts to grumble and he realizes he's really hungry, so he pulls out his pan and starts a fire. He throws in the mushrooms he found in the forest and some jerky that was in his bag. Lightly steamed and seasoned, and breakfast is served. He takes a bite and it turns out delicious. He couldn't get over how good the villager title set was. Even a pan and kitchen knives came with it. He wonders if this villager was really a basic villager, because this set seems too specialized for survival. In the end, he finishes his food and starts thinking about what to do next. It seems like, rather than conquering this world, it has become survival in another world. He decides to use the cave as his home, so he needs to focus on gathering food and safety measures. He stumbles upon some medicinal herb, which looks pretty useful. Out of nowhere, he hears some rustling sounds coming from behind him. Haruka stares at the source of the sound. The monsters finally decide to show up. They're goblins, not to mention 2 of them. He notices their status. It's higher than expected, and they're even stronger than him. He wonders if he will be able to win against them. But he decides to fight because he will have to fight them eventually while he's stuck here. He has an advantage. They haven't even noticed him yet, so the stage is set for a surprise attack. He pulls out his cane and slowly creeps up on the goblin from behind. With all his force, he smashes the cane into the goblin's head and takes him down, but the second goblin is still left. The little monster shows up with a club in his hand. Haruka swings his cane and stabs it into the goblin's stomach. He sighs with relief and sits at the riverside, staring at his reflection in the running water. He survived his first battle. There are a lot of points to reflect on, but he got the enemy killed with his simple plan, so it's a passing grade. He realizes he feels more mentally exhausted than physically. That goblin battle seems like the first otherworld battle he has done so far. He finds the goblin's club on the floor, but it doesn't seem useful. It's too short and heavy, so he can't use it. The wooden stick he has right now works much better. He opens up his status, and bingo, he has leveled up. His stats are looking fancy now. He also leveled up on the cane art skill. It went up just because he was hitting some goblin with it. He noticed that sensitivity went up as well. He has also gotten gymnastics skills because he hasn't missed a morning with stretching and exercising. Some time passed. It was his third day at the cave, and he had already gotten tired of eating mushrooms. But if he said he wanted meat, he imagined he would definitely be scolded by the class president, telling him it's not good to be extravagant all the time. His level also went up yesterday, so he has many new things to test out. First off, he needs to strengthen himself because he doesn't like the idea of getting his game over by some random surprise attack by a stronger monster. He also wants to do something about his home if he finds the time. He suddenly remembers he got something yesterday that he would like to test out. It's a magic collection skill that collects magic power for Haruka and can be used anywhere he wants. Haruka is amazed at just how good that skill sounds. It's a superior skill with an excellent cost performance that puts others to shame. He has no doubt that the people of the other world come flocking to get it because it's so useful. It's also great that the inscription skill went up. But because the level went up, it's strange how there's a question mark after the name of all his materials. He chooses to stop thinking and go out to practice some magic. Yet after some walking, Haruka gets frustrated because he finds out that now he's taking some mushrooms. He got annoyed. He has so many of those already. He wonders why there's no meat growing in this place. He stops and questions all of this, what he's even doing. He should be practicing magic and not gathering mushrooms, but it's not his fault that he just keeps finding them unexpectedly. He takes a deep breath in and activates his magic collection skill, sending the power to his feet. After the skills are successfully transmitted to his feet, he runs around at the speed of light. His body feels as light as a feather. It's almost as if he's teleporting. Even his grip on the cane is strong. He couldn't believe how good this skill is. There's a great difference in agility. Even the goblin, which is stronger than him, can be defeated easily. The two goblins are no match for him. Compared to yesterday, he has gotten a lot stronger. The effects of the skill even extend to his weapon. The wooden stick in his hands buzzes with magic power. He wonders if he will be able to take on 3 goblins now. He sighs and decides to stop and conclude his magic research for the day. He recalls going goblin hunting in the afternoon and spending the night researching magic, though it was mostly trial and error. Then on day 5, he succeeded in defeating the goblin in one hit, as well as improving the interior of the cave. He seems to be doing well in the other world, just as he was hoping for. Now he needs to look for some meat to eat better. He hunts down a rabbit, which later becomes his first meat dinner in a while. Suddenly, his present sense tingles. He feels something nearby, and it's not a goblin, but something else. Out of nowhere, all his classmates show up out of the trees. He couldn't believe that out of all people, these delinquent classmates were the ones who showed up. He sits behind a tree and listens in on their conversation. His classmates talk for a while and then decide to leave, saying that a vice class president must be hoping they get back soon. Their laughter echoes as they walk away. Haruka sighed with relief that they had finally decided to go somewhere else. Their conversation was actually painful to listen to. He would rather listen to the principal's speeches. There was hardly any useful information in the conversation. What they were talking about makes it seem like they were conspiring against the girls in the class. But the girl is also the class president, so he is sure she would see through the boys' plan and crush it. He remembers the class president is the one who has been constantly defeating the problematic children since elementary school. It also looks like they are still doing stupid things even after being transported to a fantasy world. Judging by how they interacted before, the one who is teaching all the delinquents the skills from this world is Tanaka. But Haruka knows that if the classmates rely on Tanaka and call him out so much, Tanaka will have no choice but to answer even when he dislikes it. It seems like everyone is better off without him, but it would be a bother to meet them, so he decides to go home instead. He checks on his stats and gets frustrated to see that the loner skill has gone up again. He wonders why. Could it be because he didn't call out to his classmates or because he has been in his room all day? He knows that it would really be something to cry about if Neat leveled up too. Even though he has worked so much, these titles really cut deep. But his main skill is still at level 3. This is probably because of the Jack of all trades or Ho-Renso and wooden doll skills. Jack of all trades skill makes him can't focus on one thing and refine it. But it's good too, because it will allow him to do all the things he has never done before. But a wooden doll is completely useless. It's just unproductiveness, which means he can't do anything. All these 3 skills combined make him unable to focus on one thing and just do so many things at once. He suddenly realizes that he's talking to himself again and stops, because he can't let Loner go up again. He decides to distract himself by binge eating. He still has mushrooms to eat. He wishes to eat some fish soon. Some time passed, and today is day 7. Haruka wakes up from his dreams about catching fish. His present skill keeps going off, making it impossible for him to sleep because of the sounds from every living thing around him. He wonders if it's the delinquent's classmate again, so he gets up to check it out because it's still the middle of the night. Good kids should be asleep right now. He hears some beeps in the distance. He wonders what it could be. Maybe they bother one of his classmates again. He activates 1,000-mile eyes to take a better look. He finds out it was just some high school geeks in a battle with some goblins. He activates inspection and decides to inspect them for now, but it looks like they don't need help. Their jobs are super cool, like Guardian, Ninja, Maze, and Saint. He wonders if he's the only one who's jobless. They all have cheat skills after all. They should be experts in terms of parallel worlds. He suddenly notices some goblins creeping up on them from behind. Haruka can't help himself. He whips out his wooden stick and attacks the little monsters and takes them all out. Even if he dislikes his classmates, letting them die never comes to our protagonist's mind. Everyone's heads turn to look at Haruka. He asks the Geek Squad if they're still alive. All the kids' faces light up with smiles as they thank Haruka for his help. Haruka gets embarrassed and tells the kids that there's no need to thank him. He hasn't talked to anyone in a while, so he can't even speak properly. He figures that at times like this, he should make small talk. He asks the kids what's up and how they're doing in this parallel world so far, but the kids surprise him by saying they're all running away. Haruka brought the worn-out classmate to his cave. The kids were amazed at seeing the stylish cave. The kids ask if Haruka did it all by himself, and they're astonished by the space inside the cave. It's already bigger than IKEA back in Japan, so Haruka living alone in this wide space is so unfair. The kids are already getting a little noisy for Haruka, so he decides to quiet them down. Haruka serves them some sketchy-looking juice. The kids ask him why the juice has got a weird color and ask if he's trying to experiment on them, but their thoughts change when they taste the juice. Haruka made the juice out of sweet nuts that he found in the forest. But that wasn't his plan. He was actually following a bird because he wanted to find fried chicken. That's when he stumbled upon the sweet berries. All thanks to his new blessing of the forest skill that allowed him to be more lucky inside the forest. The kids tell him that they couldn't find anything even though they looked for it. Then Haruka asks them why they were running away, and they start to tell him about the 1 week from the time he had missed, the day that everyone was transported into the forest. It seems like there was a lot of confusion at first, as there normally would be. The delinquents and mean girls were going around, causing unnecessary noise. They got all the basic information, thanks to God. If it was for Haruka that should explained, he would have just given up. Since the beginning, the only one who remained calm was the class president. While the geeks were busy swapping status information, they were attacked by a wave of goblin monsters. At that moment, even the reliable class president froze with fear. The girls in the class started crying louder and louder. Inside his heart, Haruka knows it's a bad idea to make unnecessary noise when the monsters come, because that would only attract more. But well, it's normal for them to be scared when they see a monster in front of them. And when the monsters showed up, even the delinquents who were fooling around stopped in their tracks and were screaming with fear. Haruka couldn't believe their stupidity. Yeah, bro, me too. And the one who finally put an end to the confusion was the nerds, who were the ones inside the cave with Haruka. They started fighting against the goblins without saying a word, and eventually the athletic guys started fighting too, and it seemed like they won somehow. After that, the class president, who had now recovered, guided everyone to a safe riverbed. Haruka wonders how no one got hurt, considering half of them didn't even do anything. The nerds then took the initiative by starting a bonfire and putting up tents. It seemed like they had been practicing survival skills in secret. After a few days after everyone had calmed down, that's when the discussion started. Haruka still thinks they're slow because if he was in charge, they would probably start doing jobs from the first day. They then discussed the distribution of work, rotation of night watch, and the food problem. While putting out thoughts of her own, the class president often asked the geeks for advice, which gradually unified the class. Haruka is impressed about how the class president is still acting like usual, even in a parallel world. The class became unified, and the mood in the class became better to the point where it started to feel like things would somehow work out. The feelings of the entire class became one finally arrived, or so it should have been, but there were still some problems. Everyone started fighting among themselves, criticizing the jobs that were assigned to them. The class president tried to talk them out of it, but everyone refused to do their assigned jobs. The class president eventually gave up, and the discussions broke down. Haruka gets frustrated and feels bad for the class president. So after all that drama, the nerds got fed up and decided to run away. Haruka is still mad about them leaving the class president alone, but the geeks tell him that it's not like they just suddenly decided to get up and run away. That was just the beginning of the story. What happened next was the difficult part. It was really the worst. Haruka, still mad about the president, grabs the storyteller in rage, but the geeks calm him down and continue the story. In the end, even food production and protection of the camp were forced onto the geeks. A number of students worked with the president, but the others didn't do anything at all. Haruka doesn't understand why they didn't help. If they didn't have anything to do, they could have done some work. The geeks continue, saying there was a rumor that someone in the group possessed skills like fascination and puppetry that allowed them to control people. Haruka asks how they figured that out, and then one of them reveals that they saw them take those skills back in the White Room. Haruka figures they were raising their level to defend against those skills, and as expected, some people in the group started to act differently. Well, Haruka already knew who those puppetery people were without saying it explicitly. As the story continues, the delinquents start working on raising their level, and Haruka figures they are doing that to make their evil skills more powerful. The geeks who were listening in on the delinquents' conversation found out about their evil plans, and when the geeks told the president about the danger, she started working on raising her level as well. Eventually, the delinquents finally got their fascination and puppetry skills more powerful. Then they came across the class president, and of course they got excited to use their evil skills on her, but in the next moment, they were all laying on the floor, knocked out in defeat. The fact is, the geeks used seal skills and sealed their evil skills. After everyone found out about their evil plans, the delinquents were chased out of the base. But there's still more. The delinquents later used a break in their defense to attack the base, which resulted in a lot of damage. In the end, the entire base burned down. And then for some reason, the responsibility was pushed onto the geeks. Everyone blamed them for starting the war. Despite the president's group standing up for them, the geeks were kicked out of the party. Haruka takes a deep breath. After listening to the story, he hugs them and apologizes for blaming them before. They have been through enough already. Haruka suddenly decides that they're going to have a feast tonight. It's a mushroom party. The geeks look at him baffled, knowing they already had mushrooms for breakfast and lunch. Days go by, and the geeks decide to leave. They thank Haruka for taking care of them and feeding them mushrooms. Haruka advises them not to get caught by the class again, but they convince him that's not going to happen again. They ask Haruka to come along, but he refuses. Haruka figures that they're planning to follow the river down to the town and become adventurers. He wanted to go with them, but with his cursed status, he will probably just drag them down. Honestly, he is interested in the town, though. After the nerds leave, Haruka starts to regret not going to the town and enjoys a journey. To calm his mind, he started planning what he should do today, and decided to check out the class base. The geeks kept telling him that they were worried about the class president. On his way to the base, he encountered a kobold. He got bitten in a second, but fought it off somehow. He kept walking, slightly wounded, but he eventually came to the class base. The fences and tents were in pieces. It was probably because the geeks were no longer in the base and fixed it, but he doesn't see anyone there. He wonders if they relocated somewhere else. Haruka wonders where they went and stumbles upon some footsteps. He decides to follow in the footsteps. He activates 1,000-mile eyes and stops when he finds something. His spider senses from Tom Holland tingling, something coming his way, so he waits for a while. But his mind gets affected when he gets a little hungry. Then he starts thinking about dinner, maybe some fried chicken. Suddenly, someone calls him from behind, asking him to hold on. Haruka's eyes turn to them. He gets annoyed to see that out of all people, it's the mean girls. Yikes! Haruka stops and asks everyone how they're doing. The girls just stare awkwardly. He takes it as a clue to get out of there and runs for his life out of there. The girls start chasing him and beg him to stop and hear them out. In the end, he stops when the girls say, please, because there's no way a word like that would come out of the mean girl's mouth. The girls stop chasing him and ask Haruka if he knows where the geeks are because he's close to them back in class. Yet Haruka asks them why they're looking for them, and he's left shocked when he hears them say they are looking for them to apologize. The only reason they survived so far was because of them. Haruka was amazed at hearing the mean girls say that. The girls just want to formally apologize and ask Haruka to let them know if he has any information. Haruka shakes his head. To think that the mean girls would lower their heads and ask for someone's help is really strange. The other world really is something else. This would never happen in the real world. Haruka knows he could help the girls, but he also doesn't want to be a burden to the geeks. They have already gone through the trauma of being chased by everyone, but he decides to help the girls a little. He says they won't be able to catch up with them at this rate, but the girls say it's fine and he should just tell them their location. Haruka sighs. He asks them if they know how to clear the forest. Thus, they might even encounter some monsters on the way. After some thinking, the girls seem confused and hesitant. Enraged, Haruka yells, he doesn't care if their personalities are still as evil as before, or if they have reformed themselves. They should make up their damn minds about whether they want to thank their saviors or if they want to give up. The girls tear up, but Haruka couldn't care less. The girls start throwing a tantrum, saying they're all going to die. Even though they just want to apologize, they never can defeat the monsters. Haruka stares in confusion and asks what's wrong. That's when the girls drop the bombshell. They ask Haruka to teach them how to survive long enough to apologize and give them a chance to atone for everything they've done wrong. Haruka accidentally said yes. Suddenly, a skill gets activated, and the system informs that the mean girls get subdued. The next moment, Haruka wonders what the hell is going on. The mean girls start following him around like ducklings follow their mother. He doesn't understand what subjugation is. Even if he tries to talk to them, they just stare at him blankly. It's scary how their eyes are completely dead. They look like cult members. They just keep listening to whatever he says, even somehow acting together to kill a kobold, and then silently handing the finishing blow to Haruka. After that, they extract the magic stone and present it to Haruka. Fast forward to after the battle, Haruka notices that one of the girls is wounded. He hands her a potion from God's present to help her heal, and the girl splashes some on Haruka as well. Haruka screams in disgust because even though it's a high-level potion, it still smells really disgusting. But the subjugation still holds, despite the horrendous smell of the potion that would even drive a dog away. Suddenly, someone shows up from in the middle of the forest. Surprise, surprise! And it's none other than the class president herself. The class president approaches Haruka from behind while he's busy sitting on the floor trying to figure out what happened to the mean girls and how to dispel subjugation. The class president calls him multiple times, but he doesn't even hear her because he's so focused. The class president gets irritated and yells out Haruka's name. Haruka gets startled and snaps out of his focus. Everyone gets amazed to see the class president there. The class president notices that the group of girls looks a bit off. She asks Haruka if something happened to Shimizaki and the other girls. Haruka looks at her, confused, having no way how to explain the situation to her. If anything, Haruka himself needs someone to explain the situation to him. It's kind of a long story, Haruka says, before he tells her the entire story about the weird subjugation spell. The president gets furious and starts suspecting Haruka of doing something to the girls. Also, that story wasn't even that long. She angrily asks Haruka how he captured the girls, and with a skill that sounds like it should be used on monsters. Haruka explains, saying it just happened on his own. Plus, when he looked at the status screen, the girls were listed as bitches. The class president grows even more enraged and scolds Haruka for calling his classmates such an awful thing. Haruka feels all the girls' eyes staring into his soul. He is convinced someone in the group must be using ice magic. He gulps with fear and sees only one way out of this, going back home. He bids everyone farewell and starts making his way back home. The class president talks all the girls out of their trance-like state because of the subjugation skill. Somehow the subjugation skill powered down, and the girl started to awaken. The class president hugs Shimizaki with relief and figures she should just ask her what happened because the conversation with Haruka doesn't seem to be going anywhere. She gives Haruka a death stare and tells him he's not allowed to leave yet. The girls group up and start talking while Haruka sits on the side. He's been left out once again, but being a loner is his thing after all. Bored to death, he decides he should try out the expansion magic he used to make his bat cave bigger to pass the time. Haruka gets to work, focusing his magic power, when he suddenly gets interrupted by an irritated voice calling his name. It's the class president. She gets furious seeing Haruka's body buried in the ground up until his neck. Almost like a cat who got stuck behind a sofa, she gives Haruka a hand and helps him get back up. After some side story, the girls bow down, thanking Haruka for helping them, as well as the geeks. Haruka questions them if he can go back now because it looks like this will take a while. The girls ask him about the place he's so eager to return to while they have nowhere to go. Haruka answers in seconds he's going back to his house. Where else? The girls' jaws hit the ground. They ask him how he even has a house in another world. Was he born here? So Haruka tells them he just built one when he had free time. The president calls another girls-only meeting, yet he can only stand there answering their questions. The president asks about the size of his house that can be used for people. Then Haruka does the math in his head. With 6 people per square meter, about 240 people, maybe more if he removes the furniture and includes the kitchen and bathrooms. The class president's eyes widen upon hearing these details. She asks Haruka what kind of mansion he has been living in up until now, with so much room and even a kitchen and bathrooms, while they have all been living so rough. Haruka figures she's jealous of his luxurious life in this new world. The class president hesitantly asks Haruka the million-dollar question. Could he let everyone stay at his place for the time being? Haruka couldn't believe what he had just heard. There was no way he was having girls over at his place. But it seems like the president has already made up her mind. She announces they're coming over, not to mention every single one of them, including the other girls from the class. Haruka couldn't believe it. Girls these days are shameless, but he couldn't say no either. They all follow him like ducklings around the forest, so Haruka guides them along the way by telling them the directions. The girls are shocked with silly faces looking at his architectural skills. He has even built roads. What's next? A convenience store? After a long walk, everyone makes it to Haruka's mansion. The girls enter his cave mansion, and it instantly takes their breath away. They can't believe this is another world. It feels more like a dream. The girls' eyes sparkle, seeing the beautiful interior of the house. Haruka gets shy, seeing them react even more dramatically than the geeks. He starts telling the girls about the house, so he tells them the location of the kitchen and the bathroom. And before he knows it, the girls race toward the bathroom. They strip and get into his bathtub for a bath. Haruka gets completely flabbergasted, but he knows it's of no use. The time they spent in the forest replaced their pride with pure savagery. The girls seem to love his place. The bath and the mushroom meals are all great. Haruka finds himself in a safe corner and places another magic tent there. He jumps in his new girl-free home and celebrates being alone. This feeling of release and independence is a feeling that only a loner could understand. After all, he couldn't survive being in the same room as high school girls for extended periods of time. He notices someone outside his tent. He goes out to check and finds the class president outside. Somehow she thanks Haruka for helping them out again. She tells him that after the geeks left, the other guys left and went somewhere else too, so they were a bit worried. She tells him that living at his place with luxurious foods, high cuisine, and jacuzzi seems to have lifted everyone's spirits. The class president looks down in shame, saying she hasn't done anything to stop the class from falling apart. But Haruka disagrees with her. He tells her she has been protecting everyone all this time, but she thinks it wasn't much as compared to what the nerds did. Haruka pats her on the back and encourages her, saying they are all strange and nerds after all, so it's fine if she isn't like them. She turned her head down, so he continued to explain that the reason she was feeling gloomy was because she was setting them as standard. There's no point in comparing herself to those who were born for this kind of lifestyle. They're the weird ones and not her. The president's face lights up with a smile. She thanks Haruka for making her feel better. He's really cool after all. The class president thinks Haruka is the weirdest out of them all, living in a mansion, eating real food, and fighting monsters. Their chit-chat ends, and the class president leaves after wishing him good night and thanking him for everything. Haruka lies in his magic tent thinking about his guests. It looks like he's too excited to be sleeping much tonight. The next morning, when Haruka opens his eyes, he gets up to see a girl in the tent with him. He wonders who it could be, the next-door childhood friend or a cute sister trope. That girl turns around and tells Haruka the breakfast is ready. That's when he realizes it's neither of them. He freaks out to see a complete stranger in his tent. Haruka, still confused about who this girl is, but after he's fully awake, he realized she's one of his classmates. Yet he tells her he'll get up in about 30 minutes. The girl crawls up onto Haruka's lap and asks him if he even plans on getting up at all. Haruka blushes. He wouldn't want to get up from this position even if she tells him to. Haruka changed the subject and asked her what was for breakfast. Then the girl replied, grilled mushroom and fish. Haruka's eyes widen when he hears that there's fish. He jumps in excitement, so hard that it sends the mystery girl flying into the distance. After the embarrassing tragedy, Haruka stuffs his face with the fish. The taste fills his eyes with tears. He can't even remember the last time he had fish. The class president enters the room and asks him why he's crying about fish while he has been living in front of the river all this time. But he was never able to catch any. All he did was watch them while he ate mushrooms for the 100th time. The president asks him why he couldn't just catch them. So Haruka tells her he couldn't, because they're fast and slippery. He asks her if there are any easy ways to catch some. One of the girls gets up to show Haruka how to catch some fish. She activates her lightning skill and aims it at the water. The water splashes, and all the fishes become visible. Thus, Haruka catches as many as he wants. When he sees the orb of lightning magic in the girl's hand, he questions if he can borrow it. After getting the orb, he uses his packaging magic to seal the orb, tiptoes to the river, and uses the orb to catch some fish on his own. Suddenly, a new skill notification shows up. He's got lightning magic. The class president asks him what he just did, and he explains, saying he was studying the lightning magic, and he used his packaging skill to surround the spell and learned the corresponding magic. The class president thinks that sounds like cheating, but Haruka explains that it's more like a combination of packaging and jack of trades, but it's not even close to as cool as some of the skills that the girls have. Cheat-level magic is really amazing. Haruka nearly wet himself when he first saw the magic from earlier. Some time passes, and Haruka asks the president what their next plan is. He could get some renovations made if they want to stay at the cave for longer. She says they haven't decided yet, but in general, it seems like they all want to go to the town. Well, seems like the mean girls are going geek hunting. The class president tells Haruka that they've been thinking about ways to raise their levels. Haruka agrees. They need to have pretty high levels if they want to hunt down the geeks, so in the end, he offers to help them out. Yet the girls tell him they aren't hunting them down. They just want to apologize to the geeks. Haruka strangely gets disappointed because he won't get to see the geeks versus mean girls battle royale then. After they agree to receive some help from Haruka, the girls line up in front of him. First of all, he asks them what their levels are. Haruka's mind gets blown after hearing that everyone is above level 15, while he was getting excited about leveling up to 7. He wonders if the girls even need his help at this point. He wants to see how well they fight, so he gives them a challenge to fight kobolds. There are just 3 kobolds, and they are all low-leveled. He's excited to get this over with and go have some fish for lunch. Yet the fight reaches an underwhelming end. The kobolds defeat the girls like a piece of cake. Haruka stands there in disappointment. These girls are useless. After the meaningless fight, the girls sit in Haruka's tent like a cult meetup. They are having a post-fight review session. Fast forward and the review session ends, and as a loner, it was tough for him to be near too many girls. But at least the girls are motivated now. Out of nowhere, the mystery fish girl from earlier shows up. She apologizes about the morning, saying they were just trying to test him. Since the boys from before attacked them and put them all on edge, they thought he was the same. Haruka understands why they would be worried. The mystery girl says he wasn't like the boys before at all. Instead, Haruka willingly helped them without wanting anything. He gave them food and shelter, and also taught them how to fight monsters. She offers to invite him over when they cook fish in the morning. Haruka thanked the fish girl, and she was not happy about her nickname. Time skipping to day 13, Haruka enjoys his fishy breakfast, which was just as good as yesterday. While eating, Haruka overhears the girl's plan of getting revenge against the kobolds, which makes him spit out his food. He asks how they even came up with that after getting so utterly defeated yesterday until Haruka had to carry them back. But the girls are determined to get revenge. The class president announces that training comes first because safety is the sharpest skill. And with that, they started training by fighting goblins. Eventually, after some hard training, the day of revenge against the kobolds arrived. Haruka wonders how this is going to go down. All the girls are looking pretty enthusiastic so far. But when he looks around, he takes his words back. seeing some girls faking sickness or even being dead asleep. The fight begins, and the girls go all in and give it their all this time, ultimately defeating the kobolds. They celebrate the successful revenge, all thanks to the training. That time, Haruka stares at the sky, realizes it is time they begin to take on the forest and make their way toward the town. This time he decided to come along. Leaving them alone in the forest was not the best decision for him. After that, the class president makes sure everyone has their stuff, fish and mushrooms. She gets interrupted by Haruka, who orders her to fill the bag up to the point the bag becomes chunky with food. Therefore, he still thinks it could fit more. If it was up to him, he would take all of it along with him. And without further ado, they head towards the town. Before leaving, Haruka tells the class president that he doesn't know what's going to come next, so let's brace themselves for the future. Elsewhere, a terrified man runs for his life, constantly looking behind him like there's someone chasing him. When suddenly he trips over a rock and falls to the ground. A hooded man shows up from behind him, yet the man begs for his life, saying he doesn't have any skills like that. But the hooded man snaps his neck in half, killing him in an instant. The hooded man walks forward with an evil smile on his face. I'm not sure about this one, folks. Is he a new villain? Back to our protagonist. Now Haruka and the girls start their journey, and they make it to the middle of the forest. He leads the group and knows that safety is the first priority right now because the delinquent classmates are probably still targeting the girls. What they are aiming for is an escape from this forest and making it to the town safely. According to what the geeks told him, there's a monster in the forest that he hasn't encountered yet, and that monster is the orc. Well, no surprise. Now suddenly an orc has come out from nowhere. Haruka pulls out his trusty cane and points it at the orc. It's the strongest out of anything that he has encountered so far, but he would like to gather as much experience as possible. Haruka's audience hides behind a tree and wishes him good luck. They will use this fight as a reference. So the biggest fight of the century begins. He attacks as fast as lightning and quickly hides behind a tree, leaving the fat orc confused. No, he's not running away. As he expected, the orc's attacks are dull and slow. As the geeks told him, the orc is resistant to physical damage, so he must defeat it using magic. Out of nowhere, the orc slashes the tree in half, exposing Haruka openly. He gets shocked seeing the power of the orc's physical attacks. Haruka dodges its attacks like a pro, but he doesn't let it get too carried away. He smashes the cane into the back of the orc's head. Everyone's jaws drop. Seeing the orc fall onto the ground with a thud, Haruka stands there, confused because he thought physical attacks weren't supposed to work on the orc. The girls stare, knowing this fight will not, in any shape or form, be used as a reference. Haruka knows this isn't his fault. It's the geeks' information. They should be the experts in fantasy worlds like this, but their information can be false, like now. Then he spots the orc walking away and running from him, so with his magic skill, he strikes the orc with the orb magic, killing the monster in just 2 hits. Yet now Haruka couldn't believe the fight was over already. Shouldn't it take more time to defeat the monster even with magic, he wonders? The girls also stare in confusion. After defeating the orc, the sun sets and they decide that it is enough for today and prepare to set up camp. The girls prepare food together as Haruka sits aside like the real loner he is. He sets up his magic tent and lantern knowing it would be enough in case of enemies because they have repellent magic, but he decides to turn on his presence sense skill before sleeping just in case. With all that set, he decides to take a look at the route for tomorrow using his new map skill, which seems like a spin-off of his Inception skill. It's way too useful. He wonders if he should follow the river, but it seems like it starts zigzagging a lot at one point, and he can't risk getting lost. Suddenly his presence sense tingles. His first thoughts are monsters. He goes out to check, but no, they're humans. They walk closer, and it looks like a group of boys. The delinquent boys? He wonders. There's no way he would be able to protect everyone here. But as they walk closer, he notices that it's just the athletes or muscle idiots, as Haruka calls it. At a distance, the class president looks at the scene, wondering what Haruka is doing. Haruka wonders what these idiots want and what they're doing here. It's really strange to be following the girls around this late at night. He figures these idiot stalkers are planning something suspicious. The boys clarify, saying they aren't after the girls, but in fact they want to meet with Haruka. The first thought that comes to Haruka's mind is that they're gay, since when have they been after him anyway? The boys throw a tantrum, saying that's not the case. Haruka covers his ears because of the noise. Noisy people are really the worst. Well, that's exactly what a loner says. He asks the boys why they're hiding from the girls, and they say it's because they can't trust them. Haruka looks at them in disbelief. They're the ones who did nothing to help and abandoned the girls when the camp was being destroyed, and they're saying they can't trust the girls. The other boys agree. They couldn't afford to trust anyone after that incident. Haruka ponders if they're referring to puppetry and fascination skills. The muscle idiot agrees. They couldn't trust the girls after the discovery of those skills. Haruka questions why they're on guard with the girls instead of the delinquent boys, but they say if he was in their position, he'd understand. Haruka knows that the thing they're all afraid of is the skill that the geek said was the most dangerous out of all. It's the plunder skill that takes the skills of other people. It's both powerful and brutal, the strongest cheat skill to ever exist. He wants to blame the god again, but he's too lazy to remember that useless god anymore. Well, even though the delinquent boys made a big deal about puppetry and fascination, no one said anything about plunder, which probably means they didn't have it themselves either. So it must be someone else. Haruka stares into their eyes and asks, "What if I was the one who had plunder skill?" The boy gulps, saying it's fine if he's the one who had it. It would actually be a huge relief. He asks Haruka if he actually has it, but Haruka says no, but confess he does have subjugation skill. The boy freaks out. That sounds way worse than plunder, but it doesn't matter if he has it. They believe in Haruka, since he was just a silent and good kid in Japan. They just came here to warn him about plunder. The boys tell him to stay safe and return to the forest, on guard against the delinquent boys. As they leave, Haruka advises them to talk it out with the goblins if they get in trouble, since their brain is the same as a goblin. The boys get annoyed and ask him to apologize to the class president for them. The class president is still watching the scene from a distance. Her face seems to blush. In the morning, it is now day 17, and they get ready to go further into the forest. Haruka notices that everyone looks pretty energetic this morning. It must be because of all that tasty fish. He's been using his inspection skills to find something to eat other than mushrooms, but all he has found are some antidote herbs. He figures he should take some just in case. While he's collecting the herbs, the class president calls him from behind. She asks him about his conversation with the muscle idiots last night, which reminds Haruka and tells her that they were apologizing. Suddenly, the class president bowed her head and apologized to Haruka, saying she was going to tell him about her skill earlier, but she couldn't. Wow. Now Haruka guesses her skill must be plunder. Her eyes widen, and she looks at him confused, asking how he knew about it, even though the geeks assured her that they would keep it a secret. He tells her it was pretty obvious, but the muscle idiots didn't catch up on it since they have no brain. She wondered why he helped her if he knew. Wasn't he afraid that she'd take his skills? Haruka sighs. He asked her why he would be afraid. The geeks weren't afraid either, right? Yet she stutters. To be honest, she could just take anyone's skills just as easy as breathing. But Haruka explains, saying when the geeks sealed the fascination and puppetry skills, they could have sealed plunder too, but they didn't. Why? Because we all believe in her. She is the most trustworthy person among all of the students. The class president's eyes fill with tears as she tells Haruka how much of a relief that was. Haruka smiles, saying she has been crying a lot lately. She says it's all Haruka's fault, but Haruka freaks out and runs away. He didn't do anything, though. The class president smiles from behind. She thanks Haruka for everything he has done for her so far. Haruka and the girls continue on their journey. They seem to have made a lot of progress so far, so they decide to take a short break. He offers everyone yummy juice for a cheap price. One of the girls offers to pay with something other than money, but Haruka refuses like the good man he is. Their journey continues faster than expected. It seems like they will be setting up camp soon. Haruka knows it's important to choose a location near a flowing river without any monsters. He activates the 1,000-mile eye, finds a spot, and decides to go check it out. He tells the class president that he has found a safe spot that he wants to check out. She offers to come along with him, but Haruka runs off alone, saying he's just going to take a look. He then activates his magic collection skill. He lightens his body by applying weight magic, and before he knows it, he's up in the sky with a jump, as light as a feather. His body feels lighter and faster than ever before. At this rate, he should be able to jump really high in the sky if he gets running first. Haruka then runs as fast as he can using his magic, and the very next moment he's flying up in the sky. But suddenly his soul leaves his body as he starts to fall back down. His hands on the ground face first, but he's okay. All thanks to the magic collection skill. If he hadn't activated it, he would have died. It sounded like even the ground was making fun of him. But it's fine because he got something out of that. Plus, it's easier to tell the way from above. He even found a huge shortcut that they could have taken. He decides to go back and check in on everyone else. He makes it back, and the class president freaks out, seeing how much of a mess he is after the recon. Haruka tells her he tried to fly and see the terrain from above but fell down. There's a greater risk from the sky than from the monsters. The class president angrily grabs him and asks if his Hurensu is even working at all. She walks away angrily, so Haruka tells her he brought some fruits for another juice break, and they all enjoy some fresh juice. The next day, day 18, Haruka and the girls were able to get out of the forest a lot faster, thanks to yesterday's recon. The journey was smooth, other than the girls taking breaks every minute, endless arguments, and even a fat orc versus Haruka fight. A lot happened in between, but in the end, their struggles paid off because they made it out of the forest safely. They stand at that cliff edge. Haruka activates 1,000-mile eyes to look a bit further, but the hills obstruct his vision. He decides to try flying to see a bit better, but he's still not a pro at landing. Up in the sky, he figures out that he can move while flying using the airwalk skill. The girls stared at him, concerned about his safety. The class president points towards the left and urges Haruka to check if it's safe in that direction using his 1,000-mind eye. So Haruka checks it out and gets shocked when he sees someone getting attacked by monsters. It's a group of about 6 people, a few older people, and some armor too. The class president gets worried and asks if they will be able to win alone. Haruka knows that in this situation, humans getting attacked by monsters is inevitable. But it doesn't mean that those humans are specifically good people. Even if they help them out, they will just end up turning on them if they're thieves or something, so it's a big risk. It was the same with the delinquent boy. He hesitated to chase them, knowing they had bad intentions. In the end, all of his classmates are naive. The only reason Haruka is even following the girls to the town is because humans are far scarier than any monsters. He can't let them meet those delinquent boys. But the class president then decides to go help those guys out. Haruka told her they wouldn't make it in time, even if they ran as fast as they could. And what were they going to do if those guys turned out to be thieves or bad people? But the class president grabs Haruka's hand, saying she'll fight back if they turn out to be thieves, and if they're not, she wants to help. Haruka looks back at her, knowing she said that, because indeed she's naive. In the end, Haruka decides to fulfill her wish and go help them out. That's what he's here for anyway. The girls root for him, saying they'll be fine back here. So Haruka makes his way there, yet he knows he won't be able to make it there in time by running even if he tries. Also, the combination of magic collection skill and weight collection skill, which he tried yesterday, was too difficult to control. All that's left is a gamble. He plans to strengthen his body using the magic collection and become weightless using the weight collection. And then he will use the wind magic that he learned yesterday. He gets on it, and before he knows it, he's up in the sky like Superman. All the girls' eyes are glued to Haruka as he flies off into the distance. Amazed, Haruka couldn't get over the feeling of flying. From now on, he could get anywhere like this. Suddenly, he feels something on his back. He looks at his back and gets a mini heart attack. Seeing the class president on his back, he keeps going because moving objects can't stop all of a sudden. He makes it at the crime scene and takes the monsters out with a bang. He nails his landing, but the class president falls behind him. Everyone's heads turn to look at the hero. Haruka then succeeds in saving the group from monsters like a newly born hero. But the class president only lies there, unbothered and fainted. The saved group thanks Haruka for his bravery, and they all introduce themselves. The leaders of the group, Ofter and Gatek. They offer to treat him to anything of his choice as thanks at the town of Omui. All their friends are safe because of him after all. Yet Haruka smirks and asks for the ultimate thank you gift: girls. They all laugh and decide to continue this conversation when they reach town. Ofter warns Haruka about packs of green wolves that have been going after merchants recently. The guild also puts out a request for them. They were told there wouldn't be too many, but in the end they got attacked by over 30 of them. They would have definitely been wiped out if Haruka is not helping. Yet he tells them that there is also a big green wolf in the pack. The party members freak out. How on earth the Adventures Guild was not informing them about that strong monster? After a small talk, Haruka figures that their party has taken huge losses, so he thinks they're going to split the remaining cargo and bring it home. He sits there because he has nothing to do here until all the other girls get here. It looks like it will take some time. The class president is still fast asleep too. To kill time, Haruka decides to have some snacks. He gets the fire going using his skill and stakes some strength mushrooms, slightly salts them and grills them on a skewer. He hands the mushrooms out to everyone, even if they didn't get any wounds. There must be some minor damage. The party members ate the mushrooms and thanked Haruka for the delicious snack. It even helped their strength go up and relieved their pain. He smiles, and everyone seems to like the mushroom snack. Haruka couldn't help but be a little jealous of the old man since he has a party with all these beautiful girls, but he can't even form a party because he's a loner. He wants to punch him, regretful and willing to take back whatever health he recovered from his mushroom snack. Meanwhile, the class president wakes up, but what she can see is Haruka in attack mode. Fast forward, the two of them get reunited with the rest of the girls. Thus, the girls all fangirled over the elf women of the party. The party then guided Haruka and the girls straight to the town. After some time, they make it to Omui. The girls start running around, racing towards the town like kids in an amusement park. They celebrate making it to the town. Elsewhere, the delinquent boys have raised their levels enough, so they plan to find the girls and attack. The delinquent boy gets thrilled and urges their leader, Katsuyama, to start the attack. After waiting for a long time, so long that they thought they'd become old men, the boys advise Katsuyama to unseal their evil fascination and puppetry skills before attacking the girls. Using those skills, they can make the girls willing to do anything for them. So the first step of their plan is looking for the geeks. They don't plan on letting them get away this time, especially the kid with the glasses. And with that, the delinquent boys have started to move. Back in the village, the girls enjoy their time at the village, looking at the cute buildings and eating all the food. Haruka notices that their appetite has gone through the roof since they've spent so much time in the forest. The girls start exploring the village, but the class president tries to stop them from drifting too far because they still have things to do. Haruka knows his role has ended here because everyone has arrived at the town safely. The class president asks for Haruka's help in gathering everyone, but he seems to be a little too relaxed, like he's on vacation. She gets mad and whistles. Everyone gathers around immediately, and Haruka is amazed at how she's got everyone under control. She announces the plan from here on out. So the plan goes like this. After we'll introduce them all to the Adventurers Guild, and then they will all register as adventurers and find a place to stay. They will also ask for information about the geek leader, Oda. After leads them to the guild, and Haruka notices how they're all on edge. He couldn't blame them either, considering they almost died because of bad information. It all looked shadier. They finally make it to the Adventurers Guild. All the girls storm inside, yet the guild is filled with men. Everyone in the building gets shocked seeing new recruits. They're all girls with a single bean sprout with them. Someone calls on Haruka, calling him out on the evil look in his eyes. Haruka gets mad and stares angrily, daring him to say it again. Suddenly, all the tough guys kneeled on the ground in fear. Haruka wonders if it was because of contact lenses. The class president tells him not to glare at them. Haruka's still confused as to why they're lying there like disaster training in Japan's school class. Are his eyes a disaster to them? But the class president sits him down in a corner. It looks like Haruka is a loner everywhere he goes. After comes in and almost screams. Seeing everyone on the ground, he warns everyone not to mess with his savior again. He asks Haruka what happened, so Haruka tells him someone picked a fight with him, and he got yelled at and bullied. After then punishes everyone for treating Haruka poorly. He gets interrupted by someone calling them upstairs, because they have some information about the Green Wolves. Everyone's heads turn as Haruka walks upstairs. He enters the room and finds a scary old man standing there, the guild master. Haruka looks down in disappointment. He's getting sick of meeting all these old men. He just wants to meet some beautiful women already. The scary guild master stares at Haruka. The pressure is so intense, Haruka just knows he is going to get yelled at. But the guild master smiles and shakes Haruka's hand instead, thanking him for helping out Ofter and his guys back in the forest. Haruka wonders if he's going to get an award or a certificate now. He sighs with relief as he walks back down. He really thought he was going to get scolded for a second there. Ofter gets started with exchanging the goods and helping everyone with their registration. Haruka still has the magic stones that he wants to sell, so he tells everyone to get their registration done while he's at it. He walks up to the exchange window, wondering how much these stones would sell for. They really managed to collect a lot of stones, with him defeating goblins left and right, and the girls helping by cleaning up after him. If the stones sell well, he might get to become a lonely playboy in this world. In the reception, he tells her that he wants to sell some F-rank stones, so she tells Haruka to place the stone on the counter. After that, he flips the bag over, and the receptionist's jaw drops, seeing the overwhelming number of stones falling around everywhere. The receptionist got overwhelmed. She clarified she couldn't appraise this much magic stone. Yet Haruka said with a blank face that he had so much more in this bag. In the end, she said she would appraise all of that, but it would be finished tomorrow. After that, he met all the girls who had already finished their registration. In there, everyone seemed to be crowding the place. They were amazed by 20 strong adventurers with level 30 just registered like that. The future seemed to be bright for this village. Suddenly, the class president ordered Haruka to also register. She praised him, stating he should be the strongest here and be the best adventurer. Our man got his head big, laughing and proudly saying he would be an adventurer and start his own journey while saying goodbye to his loner self. When he got evaluated in the registration, the class president smiled. She said to Ofter that she was sure Haruka was the most amazing person she met. She's sure all of the other students can't be compared to Haruka. Even the fact they can safely come to this village is also thanks to Haruka. Yet when the evaluator says Haruka needs to be level 10 to be registered as an adventurer, his dream is shattered. He cried on the floor, begging the receptionist to do something to help him. But she said it's the rule, so even the guildmaster can't do anything about it. The rule is people can become adventurers at level 10 and train with a party to be trainees at level 20 and finally become independent adventurers at level 30. Knowing that, he got frustrated, let alone be independent. He can't even be a basic adventurer. And because of loner skill, he can't enter a party, so he needs to get level 30 before registering. When he's crying, all the girls laugh at him. It's funny how the strongest one of all of them is unable to be an adventurer. But the class president keeps trying to calm him. Yet it all fails, Haruka now having emotional damage and frustrated. Looking at that, the class president stood up and declared she would help Haruka to feel better and level up.